Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Thursday morning's webinar. I'm Chloe Tetro. I'm the health coach here with ReadyCare. And for this morning, we're going to be looking at the growth mindset and what it is, demystifying the words around it, and just a little bit more about how to bring it into our lives. So, what is the growth mindset? You might have heard a little bit about it in your own lives, in workplaces. Basically, the growth mindset is what it says on the tin, and I have a little tag there. It's understanding the power of yet. So the schools of thought around mindset would have been prior to the growth mindset that we get to a specific age and that's it. We're done. We're cooked. Any of the ingredients that are in the pot have solidified. It's like the analogy would be similar to a rock. So for if there's two polar opposites, there's a rock and there's a lump of clay. With the fixed mindset aspect of it, the abilities and intelligence that you have are totally immovable. They're like a rock. They're lodged in space. You can't change them. They're totally fixed. Whereas in the growth mindset way of thinking, abilities, intelligence, capabilities, potential, all of these things are malleable. They can be continuously improved, they can develop, and challenges as a result are no longer as daunting because there's a degree of, there's that gap, a gap of knowledge which can be closed. It's not as if, who you believe yourself to be, and we've touched on beliefs in other chats, who you believe yourself to be is not a fixed state. Rather, it's something that can be molded. It's something dynamic. It's something that effort and willingness to participate will have a direct effect on the outcome. So with regards things like failures, they become very, very much learning opportunities. And when people adopt that way of thinking, um, coming up against an obstacle is a really good way to say, okay, here's the perimeter of what I'm currently capable of. How do I walk around that perimeter? How do I gain the skill set to overcome specific barriers? So it's in that little word yet. It's not a case of this problem is unsolvable. It's this problem is unsolvable for now. I'm not good at this particular task yet. So it's a very small linguistic tweak that's involved in it, but it really, really changes our aspects of approaching specific tasks. And I think a good way to ground this, because sometimes a lot of these things can be quite difficult to see firsthand, first person, because I think we're very, as humans, we're very, very self-critical. I know I am anyway. I don't know about you guys, but I would tend towards self-criticism. So the way that I might approach what I think is growth mindset is very, very much viewed through the lens of what I did was rubbish. I need to get better at this. I should be better at that. And that's not really growth mindset. Mea culpa, that's the kind of lens that I would tend to naturally fall into when I'm viewing challenges. But that's not really what I mean by growth mindset. Growth mindset is very compassionate in its views towards yourself and tasks. An easy way that I've found to adopt this is to think of it in terms of a child. I wouldn't chastise a child for not knowing something that's not within the realms and boundaries of what they currently know. If there's a 7-year-old who is beating themselves up when they're doing their homework, for example, and you're watching them, there's that kind of empathetic, compassionate streak tends to come up in most people, not all people. It kind of brings up that empathy of, this is outside the realm of what you currently know. This is outside the realm of your current abilities. It doesn't mean that you'll never know it. It just means that it would be unfair for you to expect yourself to have skill set and knowledge that are slightly outside the perimeter of what you currently have. So I have found that very, very helpful, to externalize it. And I know quite a lot of people actually that I've been chatting to over the last year. They have a picture either of their kids, and if they don't have kids, what they do is they get a picture that they like of themselves as children, and they place it in their workspace. That could be a home space, office space, wherever it might be. And it's a really, really helpful way to say the way I'm talking to myself right now as I'm talking to that child. And it's easier to view it through the lens of, okay, I'm reminding myself I'm just, and I say this most weeks, I'm just a child with the holding the controller of the adult body, and just to remind yourself that by simply saying I don't know how to do this yet, it really, really opens up an opportunity to give yourself compassion and actually have adaptability with regards to learning and change. Through the chats we would have had, you'd be familiar with when we are highly stressed, we shut down. We shut down some of our abilities to have adaptable thinking because it's not deemed necessary. Stress tunnel visions somewhat. It stops lateral thinking. It stops anything that's not deemed survival. What's the word I'm looking for? Necessary to the survival. So change, adaptability, and learning primarily come in a more relaxed, compassionate state. So if you're looking at it from the terms of valued outputs from what you're inputting into your work, the equation actually balances out a lot easier when there's an adaptation of the growth mindset. So we'll have a quick look at the brain's role in it, which I've touched on ever so slightly here. So with regards to some of the aspects of neuroscience and brain science, specifically the practical applications of it, we can have a look at how growth mindset intertwines with the brain's active components. So if you think of it, because I kind of get stuck a little bit when we're chatting with regards, I can use terminology and I have to remind myself that sometimes terminology is best described in analogy. So if you have a think of your brain as a city with new roads or the neural pathways being constructed, rerouted, and reinforced every time you learn something new. The flexibility in the brain, which is what I would usually call neuroplasticity, that's the powerhouse that fuels the growth mindset. The town planner behind the urban planning is the prefrontal cortex. So it oversees the problem solving, the decision making, and the perseverance involved in creating new pathways. So adaptability, change, learning. Corporate word would be what is it? Agile, being agile. So if the city planner ensuring our neural city adapts and evolves with every new piece of information. Every time that you're learning a new skill, even a fact, you're not just gaining knowledge, you're shaping the brain. So that's what's happening when we involve the growth mindset, not the fixed mindset, the growth mindset. It actually helps to create new neural pathways, which is, as I said, for the checks and balances version of, are we getting the output for the input we're looking for? So the researcher in growth mindset has really taken off with a Stanford psychologist called Carol Dweck, and she has not just coined the term growth mindset, but her research has really looked into the correlation of growth mindset with achievement. It's not just the likes of Carol Dweck, and she's a great book called Mindset, actually. I have it myself, and it's a very, very easy read. It's not full of jargon. It's very direct to the point, involving specific research that she's undertaken and other various bits of research collated into the book. But it also really gives nice, simple ways to access what is meant by the term growth mindset. There's an awful lot of researchers outside supporting that same the same tune, for want of a better word. There's a showcase that students who are taught with the growth mindset tend to score higher. The growth mindset isn't just beneficial in classroom setting, it's amazing for personal lives, careers, entire businesses. So when there's an adaptation of, I mentioned the agile way of thinking, when there's an adaptation of flexibility, learning, change, understanding that things are not fixed but are in this state of dynamic change, that's when individuals that make up the component parts of an organization and business can really feel like their potential is unlocked, that there's a new flowing way of thinking through an organization or a team or whatever it may be, that possibilities of goals and targets become a lot easier to picture because nothing is fixed in terms of individual and group capabilities. You can really see how it opens things up quite a bit. It values innovation, value learning, mistakes not as catastrophes. And I mean, we've all worked in places where there's a very fixed mindset. I know I have, where the mindset would turn around that if there's an error, that's a critical problem. You know, it depends on what you're working, to be fair, but that it recognizes the way that people work, you know, the way that people are uh, fallible by nature. We do make errors, but it's the approach to those errors really changes the atmosphere of a workplace. You know, if you feel that you can own mistakes, if you feel that you will get support for mistakes, errors become a learning environment where you can have a look at what worked, what didn't work, what can we do to make it even better next time. Um, that's very much around growth mindset culture, and that's the adaptation. We'll take Carol Dweck's original idea and coining of the phrase of growth mindset. It's now being established into a whole context of environment, whereas that's the culture that's being adopted. And the more individuals and groups take on that way of thinking, the better the results tend to be. It's very, very good for personal growth as well. Because again, I think sometimes when there are metrics that people can measure with work, it's almost easier to adopt specific systems thinking like this towards a task or a goal. Whereas in our own personal life, we very, very seldomly assign ourselves specific metrics of, okay, I'm moving towards what I want. Here are ways that I can measure that. And personal growth is very, very much predicated by the ability to see that you're moving from one state to another. That's why sometimes I'll say to people, make sure that you're marking some type of metrics, even if they're quite abstract ones, like scoring yourself 1 to 5 on how am I feeling energy wise that day? How's my mood? How confident do I feel? When we have an adaptation of seeing progress, it really neurologically reinforces that growth is possible, that adaptation, learning, and change are happening. And it really shapes our understanding of ourselves, our capabilities, our skill set, and it really, really dissolves any pre existing fixed mindset around our beliefs about our self identity. So it's a real, real game changer. And it's all encapsulated in the yet word. So it's very, very it's a very simple linguistic tool that I would really encourage people to start to adopt. Um, Coming to practical applications, which is oftentimes the biggest takeaway from the chats, because it's like, Chloe, off you go now on a little rant for yourself, but what do I take away from it? So the growth mindset will help to embrace challenges and persistence, and that's really a very important thing to take with this. Challenges don't need to be enemies, they can be our friends in the land of growth mindset. Specifically, challenges become opportunities to stretch our abilities and learn something new. If there's a problem you can't solve, it's not a failure, it's an opportunity to broaden your problem solving toolbox. And most people, once they have the mindset adopted, that's the way they'll view the world. You know, once you can see how much things open up, it's almost an addictive way of thinking. It's not about reaching the peak instantly. It's about appreciating the growth and the challenge in getting yourself up there, growing stronger each time that you surmount a particular smaller peak on the way to the top, which is very, that's not usually the language I like to use, but it's a good visual analogy. Um, so going back to the word yet, it's not an overstatement on how powerful that can be. And if you want to have it written somewhere that you can see it, if you're trying to adopt this, if you're trying to make it part of your everyday, visual priming is great for reminding yourself to adopt things, because we're little creatures of habit. If there's a new habit, it's good to remind ourselves. Our language really, really shapes our reality. Each words that we use have associations in the brain that create pictures, that create sensations, that create beliefs, and reinforce all of that into the lattice. If we shift our language from absolutes, black and white thinking, I can't, to potentials like I can't do it yet, I can't do it now, I can't do it at the moment. Just get creative with it. We actually condition our minds when we're in that black and white thinking to reinforce the idea of fixed perimeters on capabilities. Um, if we cultivate that growth mindset instead, it does involve shifting the type of language that we feed ourselves. Our brain is amazing. I would say our minds, because our brain is part of the equation. We also have our bodily intelligence, all of our memory stored in our bodies. If you guys know the body keeps a score, brilliant book about how our experiences are stored in our bodies in particular ways. So if we look at the amazing power of creation of our own reality that we have locked in with specific language that we use, it becomes a lot more salient to be careful about the way you speak about yourself, your capabilities. And again, if it's easier to think of this in terms of a small child, if you heard the words, I can't do this from a child, and it was just slightly outside their skill set, or, using quite harsh fixed language that reinforces and would probably cascade a bit of a downward spiral with their emotions and self-speak, self-identity, it becomes a lot easier for us to see, okay, I'm actually doing that constantly to myself. And I think just because I'm over the age of 18 and have a car, that I'm not susceptible to these types of associations that happen in the brain. It requires effort to do that. Anything that reshapes our brain and engages our prefrontal cortex. Our brain is incredibly lazy. It's actually quite a character if you were to like personify it. It likes the quickest, the way it's known the entire time. It doesn't like change actually. It has a very small amount of energy, and it's quite a miser with it. It's like, no, I have this amount of energy. Making a new neural pathway is going to cost me loads of energy. I don't know about starting that task. So you really have to gently reinforce things over and over. And the payoff and the reason why it's going to become easier and easier for you to do those things is you will genuinely feel better, and your brain will see that as a reward. The role of effort and resilience in this, effort isn't just the fuel that powers the growth, it's the compass that will guide us towards the improvement as well. So the growth mindset encourages us to see effort as a necessary ingredient for learning, not as this burden or sign of an inadequacy. It's about understanding that the growth doesn't come from breezing through a task easily. That's the nicer experience, but unfortunately, that is not how we learn. It's usually more to do with grappling with difficult ones, problem solving, engaging the prefrontal cortex, engaging new neural networks. Um, so next time that you're working on a kind of challenging task, something that's more difficult, give yourself, a little bit of a pat on the back. Go, yeah, I am building growth mindset and I'm building new neural networks. It's brilliant feedback tool, brilliant feedback as a tool for learning. Again, coming into this as well, and adopting this as a lifelong learning approach is absolutely amazing. Curiosity is really what is helping to solidify the growth mindset. When you nurture the growth mindset, it means being a lifelong learner, where every experience is an opportunity to learn something new, which is amazing. Like you think about even quality of life in people over a certain age. One of the predicators to being able to show up in life is constantly learning. It's been shown over and over and over in the literature that when the brain is constantly learning, constantly being stretched, doing puzzles, doing sudokus, doing crosswords, doing things that involve problem solving, it s- stops the degeneration of neural pathways, or at least it slows it down considerably. So when we take this approach, it extends beyond kind of formal education and classroom settings. So those are the examples I've given today, and professional settings. It's about being open to new ideas, different perspectives, different experiences, asking questions, seeking out knowledge, and continuously stretching our understanding of the world. I think like it's one of the ways that I have very much committed to, personally committed to showing up in the world. And I would encourage others to have a look at where they can bring in some of the growth mindset for themselves. That is me for today with a short spiel on the growth mindset. Hope you took something from it. And we'll be chatting to you next time. Have a lovely day, guys, and we'll see you later. Bye.